Hi, welcome to Dialed In. I'm Don Knabe, Los Angeles County Supervisor for the 4th District. I'm pleased to welcome you back to another segment of Dialed In. Our goal here, with the help of our good friends at Charter Communications, is to tell you more about Los Angeles County and the interesting people who make it a very special place to live, work, and play. While we are responsible at the county for thousands of services and programs, I think the most important and challenging job that we have is to protect those most vulnerable, especially our children. While we want every child to have a safe and happy home, unfortunately, as many of you know, kids in our community face some really difficult circumstances in their homes. Abuse, drug use, neglect are sadly all too common. Our Department of Children and Family Services focuses on helping these children in crisis situations, and they work to either help families get on the right track or ensure that these young people have a very safe place to live. We work closely with the juvenile court system to try to find the best solution for each family and child. There is no tougher job that we face as a county. I'm pleased today that we have representatives from DCFS as well as a juvenile court here to help explain this very complex situation. I hope you will enjoy the show. Welcome back to Dialed In. My first guests today play a very critical role in protecting children from abuse and neglect, while also strengthening and supporting their families. Philip Browning is the director of our Department of Children and Family Services, which operates on a $1.8 billion budget and over 7,000 employees. Before coming to DCFS in 2011, Philip served as our first Child Support Services Director beginning in 2001, as well as being the director of the Department of Public Social Services beginning in 2007. Joining him today is one of our Los Angeles County Angels, Tiffany Alexander, an emergency response children's social worker working out of the Long Beach Police Department. Tiffany started her career with DCFS as an intern some 6 years ago. She holds a master's degree in social work and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Cal State University, Long Beach. Go Beach. Thank you both for coming here today to share your roles here with us on Dialed In with Don Knabe. Philip, 7,000 folks on your team. We have one of your angels here today in Tiffany, and we're going to hear from her later, but sort of give us an overview as to what that team does. I mean, not all are 7,000 Tiffany's. You have multifaceted kinds of operations. Give us a quick overview of that.
Okay, there are about 35,000 children who are in our responsibility today. Many of those are in their own homes or with relatives, and one of our goals is to ensure that we reunify families as much as possible. But in those situations where we can't do that, where someone like Tiffany has decided with a group that the child can't be maintained and safety is our #1 goal, and that child is put into either a foster home or placed with a relative, or in some limited situations placed in a group home. We have about 1,000 children today in LA County who are placed in group homes that are pretty intensive because the behaviors of the child and the
a group home being a house in a neighborhood, or a group home being like Optimus Youth Homes?
Well, it could be either one. We have group homes as small as 6 in size and others that have a large number of homes. Our primary goal is to place the child in the least restrictive environment. So with their parents if possible, but if not possible, then with a relative. We have about 8,000 children today who are placed with relatives, and that's a very good resource for us. But then if they can't be maintained by the relatives, the next step up is in a foster home, someone like you and I who've been trained, who have agreed to keep a child for a very modest amount of money. And so they keep that child, mentor that child.
So you oversee the process of creating that environment. I mean, does your department oversee the foster agencies?
We do. We have responsibility for ensuring that the foster homes and the foster agencies do what they're supposed to do. We have a training program for new foster parents that the foster parents have to go through and get certified.
Because there are agencies out there independent of the county that also are sort of foster agencies that sort of run families through and train and become eligible for us to use?
Right, they do. They can become trained themselves, they can become certified, and we'll place a child with them. And one of the most important things is to ensure that we have the child in a safe environment, but also adoptions is something that we really take pride in. So every year, about 1,500 children are placed with a new family, and the court really has a great process for making that work. Speaking about the court, many of the situations require...
By the way, I mean, we're having Judge Nash on here, but the big piece here is we do have a children's court, the largest children's court in America, right here in our backyard, just for children and families. And you play a very important role in that, and that is what?
Right. Well, we have hundreds of social workers who are in court every day who appear before a judge and make sure that the right decisions are made on behalf of those families and children. But in order to get those children to court, we have 35 or 40 vans and drivers who come from around the county to Monterey Park, to this children's court. And the children are fed a breakfast, they have a place to stay during the day until it's time for their court hearing. And so we take pride in ensuring that we get the kids to court and that the proper decisions are being made. Then
there's a pretty good job doing to isolate the kids over there too, to some protective areas, play areas, and those kinds of things.
It's one of the best places to have a child in there. It's a child-friendly place. We have staff who can work with them. One of the most important
lower benches.
Well, lower benches and lower commodes.
So I mean, it's a multifaceted operation. It's not just all the day-to-day social work, but these other areas of responsibility, all aimed at what? The safety of the child is number one.
Safety of the child is number one. What we'd like to do is place every child back with their parents. If that's not possible, then we have the responsibility to find the best place we can, the safest place we can. Sometimes that's foster home, sometimes it's a group home, sometimes it's an adoptive placement.
But you have all these folks of your team of 7,000 are trained to do all these different kinds of things, and it's a very complex operation.
It is very complex. We have a 24-hour operation where in the middle of the night a social worker can go out, get a call and go out, knock on the door, not know who's on the other side of that door, make a decision in the best interest of that child, and we can bring those children back to a safe location.
We're going to have our folks look at that 1-800 number so that they know that that's readily available.
That's a child protection line. So if you have a problem, if you see a problem, you call us and we'll take action.
And your 7,000 member team goes into action to do what they do best. And so, Tiffany, I introduced you as one of Los Angeles County's angels.
Well, thank you.
I'm not sure that I could do your job because I don't think I could let go. And we're proud. You know, I mean, the media likes to cover the bad stuff, the things that happen that we try to avoid and want zero tolerance for, but there's so many good things happening out there. Tiffany, could you just sort of start with just a sort of day in the life of a social worker?
Well, typically, my day usually starts off by receiving an investigation. I'm an emergency response social worker, which is a little different from a case-carrying social worker. So primarily, my job is to investigate allegations of child abuse that has been reported to us from the child abuse hotline. And typically what I do is I review those allegations. I review the family's history. If there is a history, I will call the reporting party. If there is a reporting party, sometimes...
Are these direct referrals to you, or are they already maybe have open cases with the department from another worker, or...?
There could be either one. Sometimes there are open cases that we get new referrals on, so there is already a case, and then we do investigate new allegations if there is a concern. But also we do have new referrals where the family doesn't have an open case. So typically what I do is I review the history, if there's history, and then I go out to respond to the referral.
You go by yourself?
I usually do go by myself, but in certain circumstances when I feel like my safety is at jeopardy, or if there are certain circumstances in regards to the referral, then I will take law enforcement with me.
And I think the unique thing about you, I learned something about this because I didn't know that we did this, because I thought everybody worked out of the mini office that we have, but you're located in police headquarters at Long Beach PD.
Right, I am outstationed at the Long Beach Police Department downtown on Broadway, and I have a great working relationship with law enforcement there. I work directly with the child abuse detectives, the domestic violence detectives. When we have ongoing cases together, it's easy for us to collaborate and get information for our cases.
What's the biggest challenge you face every day?
You know, the biggest challenge I face really is engaging families. There's a huge misconception about DCFS and what we do. You know, our job is to make sure that children are safe, and we do thorough assessments to protect children. And at some circumstances, we do have to separate a child from his family. But for the most part, you know, we help strengthen families, and we provide support, and we connect families to the community so that they can have lifelong connections. But the biggest challenge is having a family see that, getting over that hurdle of them, you know, overcoming that, well, maybe she isn't here to hurt me or to separate my child, but she is here to help me. So, you know.
And you find that, I mean, that's a convincing, that's a sales piece almost, that you need to tell them, hey, I'm here to help,
right.
Kind of a thing, because, you know, the children you see, I mean, I've gone out with workers before, and you see some very difficult situations. Most of those children don't appear to be born out of love, but, you know, sort of a nuisance kind of a thing, and there's cleanliness issues. And so do you ever get assessment folks around you that help you with an assessment like mental health issues or health issues? Or
Yes, we do work with community partners around the county. So we have co-loaded DMH staffs in each of the DCFS offices. So they work on our team if there are mental health issues within the family, whether it be the parents or the children. We can connect them with mental health services. We also have co-located staff that can connect the families to substance abuse treatment.
So you do the wraparound services,
yes, we
and
do.
Things like that?
Yes,
Wow.
and so we have those community connections for the families, and we also include faith-based resources also.
Well, I think just, you know, we only get a brief amount of time here, and our good friends here at Charter help us understand sort of let us tell about the county. Both of you, obviously in your roles, I mean, you've multiple roles, you know, child support, everything else, up to DCFS, and Tiffany, one of those angels, the difficult job you guys do each and every day. I really appreciate the fact you've taken a few moments out of your busy schedule to join us, to sort of give us a quick overview. I think that, and with my piece with Judge Nash, I think the public understands how complex these issues are, but at the end of the day, our responsibility is the most vulnerable, and it's the kids. And we thank you both for what you do, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Knabe.
Welcome back to Dialed In. This segment is called In the Sandbox, where we take a look at stories of bipartisanship. I often ask our national leaders to learn from the examples of stories of officials at the local level working together. One of the biggest issues facing our country right now and being debated at the national level is gun control. The horrific events that occurred last year at Sandy Hook forced the gun debate back into the national spotlight. And now there is word from the nation's capital that there is a bipartisan legislation in the works on gun control. Take a look.
Congress could soon have its first bipartisan agreement on gun control. Since the Sandy Hook school shootings, the plan does not deal with banning weapons or limiting ammunition.
Guns are a very controversial topic up here, as you know, but gun trafficking is one area that everyone seems to agree the law needs to be improved. The Judiciary Committee Chairman, Patrick Leahy, a Democrat, is working with a team of Democrats and Republicans on a bill that would stiffen the penalties for smuggling guns out of the U.S. and for giving false information when purchasing a weapon. It would be the first bipartisan piece of gun legislation in a very long time.
Wow. So Congress is coming together across the aisle to draft legislation that stiffen penalties for smuggling firearms out of the country and for giving false information when purchasing a weapon? Come on. It doesn't matter where you fall on gun control. Stiffer penalties for smuggling and stiffer penalties for lying shouldn't be that hard. Americans are asking for serious debate about really tough issues in our country. Gun control, the increasing deficit, Medicare, health care. We need our leaders to make hard decisions to work together to fix our country's problems. Yes, this is a start, and yes, it is finally an example of some bipartisanship at the national level. I know change doesn't happen overnight, but it must happen over time. Our political parties need to come together as one. Our children, our families, our communities depend on it. Welcome back to Dialed In. My next guest is Honorable Michael Nash, presiding judge of the Children's Court here in Los Angeles County. Judge Nash has served on the juvenile court in Los Angeles County since 1990. He was responsible for implementing Adoption Saturdays, which has resulted in more than 9,000 foster children getting adopted. He also oversaw the creation of Los Angeles County's first juvenile mental health court, as well as our first juvenile drug court. Judge Nash, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here with you.
I think, just sort of give us an idea, an overview of the role of Children's Court, where it's come from, where do you think it's going, sort of the day-to-day operation.
Well, let's understand what the original premise is. The premise is that every child is entitled to grow up in a safe, healthy, permanent home. And to the extent that there are children in our county who are not in safe homes because of abuse or neglect by people close to them, then as a society we have a moral obligation to do something about it. And what that something is known as the Child Protection System. So through that system, we have social workers who investigate abuse and neglect, and to the extent that they find situations that clearly require government intervention, then they file cases in the court system. And the court that handles these cases is known as the Dependency Court. And in Los Angeles, we have 20 full-time dependency courts hearing these cases. It's the largest child protection system in the country. We currently have approximately 27,000 children under our court's jurisdiction. Once again, that's the highest number in the country. And most of those cases are heard at the Edmund D. Edelman Children's Court, which is just down the road from where we are here today. And it is the most unique court of its kind in the world because it is a court that was funded by the county, one of the best things the county ever did.
Exactly.
And it was designed and built to be a child-sensitive facility, which it truly is.
Well, I think your vision, Supervisor Edelman obviously was a real visionary, and we always thought about that. And going back, I wasn't on the board at the time, but obviously very important part of the decision-making process with Supervisor Dana at the time. In a typical day, sort of what happens over there. I mean, it's a most amazing process. I mean, you've done so much to sort of protect the children as well as the families, to sort of keep them out of the loop of the nastiness of some of those situations. What happens in a typical courtroom on a typical day?
Well, first,
and how many cases? And
first let me note that we have, at the Children's Court, we have 18 courts operating on a daily basis, and then there are 2 courts that do the same work at the McCourtney Court in Lancaster, because we figured out a few years ago that Lancaster was a part of LA County, and it's a long way for those folks in Lancaster to travel to Monterey Park, where the Children's Court is located. But each day, all 20 of those courts hear anywhere from 20 to 35 cases. A case consists of a family. It may be a mother, a father, or more than one father, or it could be 2 mothers in today's world.
Or even grandparents.
And any number of kids who are the parties in the case. And each one of those individuals is represented by an attorney. The county social workers who file the cases are represented by county council, and then there are organizations, the Children's Law Center, that represent all the children, and Los Angeles Dependency Lawyers Incorporated, which represents the parents in our system. So everybody has representation, so everybody presumably and hopefully has an opportunity to be heard within the framework of those cases. And within those cases, the courts make hundreds of decisions every day, from deciding, number one, was there abuse or neglect? If there was, should the children be removed from their parents on a temporary basis until the situation is fixed, or on a permanent basis if the abuse is too bad, or the parents are not capable or have not fulfilled their obligation with the help of the Department of Children and Family Services to remedy the situation that brought them before the court. Along the way, the court has to decide where the children are placed. Are they placed with relatives? Are they placed in a foster home? Are they placed in a group home? What is the visitation plan with their parents? Is there a visitation plan with their parents? What are the conditions that are necessary to be fulfilled before the parents can be returned? The children can be returned to the parents. And while we have the children in our care, how are we going to take care of all their needs? Their psychological needs, their emotional needs, their health needs, their mental health needs, their education needs. How are we going to allow them to grow and prosper as children while we have them in our care? And to the extent that, and then on a periodic basis, the court has to evaluate the type of services that the Department of Children and Family Services have provided to the family. They have to evaluate whether the parents have cooperated and benefited from those services. And if none of that happens, then the court has to decide, well, what should be the permanent plan for the children? Should they be put in a legal guardianship? Should they be adopted, which is the preferred plan under the law? And then beyond that, unfortunately, we have a number of children who come into our system who never receive a permanent family, and they leave our system because they've reached a certain age, the age of majority, which now can be between ages of 18 and 21. And we have to ensure that there are efforts to provide those youth with services so that somehow they can leave the foster care system and somehow become productive members of our community.
When it's a difficult decision for them, all of a sudden they're 18 years old, they've been part of a very public system for all that, and all of a sudden they're out there on their own at 18, say, okay, hands off, you're on your own, you got to do this. I know that I have several apartment buildings and facilities in my district that are operated for independent living kinds of purposes for that transition. The difficulty of the decision, I mean, obviously there's all this debate about reunification, or the safety of the child, and those are very difficult decisions that you have to make. It seems it's sort of an outgrowth of that and a passion that you have. First of all, you were the creator of Adoption Saturdays, which is an incredible idea to allow some of these kids a great opportunity to be adopted by people. A separate juvenile mental health court, drug court. They were sort of an outgrowth of all the decisions you faced probably as a jurist. Is that correct?
Yes, so the court has a very important role here. Congress, over 30 years ago, said that the court really does more than just decide who did what to whom, does more than just referee the proceedings in the courtroom. The court really has an oversight function to make sure that the whole system is performing the way it's meant to perform. We are expected to hold agencies accountable for what they do or don't do. We're expected to go out in the community and do things like this interview today to educate the community about how the system works, to educate the community about what resources are necessary for families, and to tell the community that they need to provide the appropriate resources so the system can operate the way that it was meant to be.
And you have an interface, obviously, with the social workers. That seems to be, in most times, a very good working relationship. Is that correct? I mean, you have to really work because they're presenting a case of a family in front of you, right? I mean, in addition to their legal representation, there is a case.
Oh, yes, and social workers are the ones that bring the case to the court. And social workers have an immense power within the framework of our community. A social worker can go into your house and remove your children from your care and keep that child from your care permanently. But the point of the way the system works is that power is not unfettered, because ultimately everything that social workers do needs the ultimate approval of the court.
Of course. So, well, listen, it's a very complex situation. I really appreciate you taking the time to sort of go through the process, because a lot of people don't know how complex it is and all the different venues that it has to go through. But at the end of the day, your passion, my passion, is to protect the most vulnerable, and that's our kids. So we thank you for all you do, what you've done, and continue to do on behalf of children here in Los Angeles County. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. In this segment, I'd like to tell you about the stuff that just drives me nuts. The stuff that just gives government a very bad name. Los Angeles County is the capital of the entertainment industry. And while people may think of the big names, Disney, Universal, Fox, the reality is that thousands of small businesses are dependent upon the entertainment industry here in the county. These companies and their jobs are critical to our region. Unfortunately, we have taken that position for granted. Over the last few years, other cities in the United States and around the world see the $30 billion that industry spends here in the Southern California region. And you can bet that they want a piece of the action. By 2010, over 40 states offered film incentives to compete aggressively for this business. As a result, the percentage of movies shot here in California has gone from over 66% to less than 40% in a few short years. Across Los Angeles County, the industry sees a mishmash of regulations and fees that can vary dramatically from one community to another. To attract this business, we must have a uniform set of policies as well as procedures and a streamlined permitting process across the county and its 88 cities. We must put out the welcome mat for filmmakers and the people who are the film industry, our neighbors, our friends, to help retain our coveted spot as the entertainment and arts capital of the world. Let's just fix it. Thanks again for tuning in to Dial In with Don Knabe. As always, I appreciate your taking the time to watch, and I hope you've learned a little bit about the Department of Children and Family Services and what Los Angeles County is doing to protect the children as well as strengthen our families. Here is your "they said what" moment, courtesy of our local KTLA weatherman, Henry DiCarlo, who had his own Ron Burgundy moment when he was pranked live on the air while reading the names of his birthday shout-outs. Take a look.
Christy and Joe Horton, 9th anniversary, and Hugh Janus, turning 10. We'd mentioned...
I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry. It's one of those. It's one of those.
I totally fell for it, didn't I?
I think it was a trick. I think
You're right.
I think it was a trick name.
You're right. I think you're right. Just figured, you know, a young kid. Hey, let's give you James a birthday shout out. Wow. I got punked.
That was hilarious. For the last time, everything you put on that prompter, DiCarlo will read. I love our local news teams, especially my good friends Chris Schabel and Michaela Pereira at KTLA, who themselves do so much for our foster kids. Well, I know all about the dangers of reading straight off the teleprompter, so I'll sign off for now. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next month with a brand new episode of Dialed In.